Yeah, like my daughter wants to be an actress and she's 9. And what advice would you give to kids that age?
To have
Do you think
fun with it. Like, it's so fun, and I think I took it so serious when I was younger, and I still take it seriously because it's something that I love, and I think that's part of it. But it's not a serious job in the sense that there are moments, yes, of course, but my job is to play pretend, and so you have to be malleable, and you have to have fun with it, and you have to enjoy it. And as I said, 90% of the time you're applying for a job, and if you don't enjoy that part of it, then that's just what hurts the most.
And you've got to keep practicing your craft. I lived across the street from Sandra Bullock before Speed. She was working on Speed, and she's like, oh, it's not even going to be a great film and all that. And then, of course, it turns out to be a blockbuster. But I said, what do you do? And she said every Friday night she has play readings. So they memorize a play every week, and they have 2 or 3 friends come over and they do a play every Friday night. And she saw 2 casting directors or 2 people every day, like Monday through Friday, like a director cast someone she didn't know before and got her headshots out. So I mean, she really hustled, she was disciplined, she had, and that's what I think you have to do today. And most kids sit back, my phone's not ringing and I don't know what's happening.
Well, now I think there's such it's kind of easier in a sense now because of social media. Which is funny, which is something that I'm really struggle with because I'm pretty old-fashioned about those things. My mom is better at social media than I am. She's always like, "Oh, you should fix your filter, or you should match the color of the saturation to your other photos so it looks more uniform." And I just kind of am like, okay, I'll just post this because I like it, sort of thing. But social media is such a huge tool that so many young actors and models and people now in music industry are using because it's a way to gain a following and to create an audience for yourself and to share what you can do. And that's a tool that I definitely
And you could videotape your auditions, right?
Yeah, well, I tape my auditions all the time and send those off.
Before you had to show up and so now if you're in another country, you could still audition.
You could still audition for things. I mean, it's incredible how small the world is now and yet big at the same time because of social media. I mean, there's so many people online. There's so many things you can do. I mean, you can send in auditions. I was in Spain and I was sending auditions to my agents back here in LA for things casting all over. And it's incredible because you wouldn't have the opportunity to do that. It's like you work and then you come back. And now you can line up work for yourself.
No, what do you think about Hollywood today with everything that's going on with Me Too and the Harvey Weinsteins and... is it hard for you? Is it?
I think it's a really exciting time for women right now in Hollywood because of social media, there is an audience for everybody. And so that is why this whole Harvey Weinstein thing was able to come out. I've never worked with him. I've never met him. I do think that he made amazing movies. But what he did isn't inexcusable, and I think that when you look at something like that came out today and everyone's like, how could this have gone on for so long? It's because only now are we kind of in this pocket of everyone's able to speak out and say what they mean, and it's being listened to and heard, which I don't think was necessarily the case before. And that's because everybody can be a part of the conversation just by posting something.
Yes.
And that's why Twitter's the conversation has gotten so big.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram and
there's so many Harveys out there. I mean, have you had any experience like that yourself, or?
I haven't had an experience in that sense. But I mean, there's certain experiences that you have as a young woman at work where someone will make a comment or something. But it's never been to that degree. I've been very lucky. And I think also, my mom raised me with kind of this, really strong sense of self and what I'm worth and what is important to me. And, I think that if I was ever in a situation like that, there is obviously a fear behind it, but I think that I could trust myself to stand up for myself regardless of what could happen. And I think that's the scary part is when you look at it from the outside, it's very easy to say oh, well, why didn't you say no? Why didn't you do that? But when you're in those situations, it's like a big giant hole that you're in, and it's scary.
Yeah, it's scary, especially if you feel alone and you really want a career and you don't want to burn bridges, and it's really treading water.
Yeah, and it's such a superficial industry because there's always a talk about like I'll go in for auditions 3-4 times a week, and I'll be too fat for one part and too skinny for another. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? So you can't like look at those things all the time and take them, you know, personally. It's just kind of like you have to have a strong sense of who you are and be like, okay, I guess I'm not right for that, and I'm not going to listen to what you say, even if that's your opinion. That's great. Just don't hire me.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and move on to the next thing.
But you are so strong. You do have such a strong sense of self, and now you are, you know, you're going to be a force. I can't wait to see you in 5 years or 10 years. You're going to be like running Hollywood. And I think that is so cool.
That is the plan.
At 20 years old, now you're already writing your own TV show?
Yeah, I'm writing a show right now that's about Hollywood. Because, you know, write what you know, and it's something that I know about, and I think that it's something that hasn't really been depicted in TV or in film quite accurately, because, you know, I think people look at it from the outside and you see this kind of glamour and this kind of shiny image of what it all is, and there are movies that show that, and that doesn't mean that it isn't. Sometimes it is, but as I said, it's like a lot of it is like being in your car and changing in your car while someone's watching you, because you have to go in and audition for something, and then you're getting back in your car and you're being told that, like, oh, well, you know, they just thought you weren't the right kind of pretty that they're looking for. And you're like, well, what does that mean? What does that even mean? You know? And as a young woman, it's like you're constantly being faced with like, oh, well, they really like you for this part, but they want to see your boobs in the show. And you're like, well, do I want to show my boobs? I don't know. Like,
are you comfortable with nudity?
You know, I've been in a situation where it was asked of me, and I had just turned 18, and it was a very long conversation that I had with my mom, and I think that nudity in film and television can be used strategically in a way that is non-sexual and can get a point across. And there's certain places where I feel like it makes sense for a story, but that wasn't a case. It was just kind of like a
gratuitous.
Like a tit show, you know? What's the point? and it wasn't something that, you know, I talked to my mom about it for a long time, and you know, you talk to your agents about it, and your whole team about it, sort of thing. And it was just something that we decided just wasn't right, because it didn't make sense for the part. It's not something that I'm like opposed to, but it's not something that I'm like seeking out.
Yeah,
if that makes sense
to do. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, I mean, when I see movies and I see nudity in film and television, my favorite times that it's used are when it's used to make something seem more real, or to make something seem more vulnerable. I mean, one of my favorite scenes in a movie is that there's this movie Origins, which is it's a good movie, but one of my favorite parts in that movie was there is a scene where a man and a woman, they start making out, and then they cut away, and then you don't see them have sex, but you see them after, and they're both naked in bed. And I thought that was a really beautiful way to depict nudity where it was real, because no one's like automatically dressed after situations like that. And they were just talking and being vulnerable with each other, and it felt completely non-sexual, and just like, this is how people are in relationships. This is how this would be, rather than like, oh, let's just like slowly pan down the body.
Yes, exactly.
You know, like really like exciting lighting, and you know, sometimes those scenes.
To sell the movie.
Yeah, sometimes those scenes in movies, you know, you see this like artful movie, and then there's like this like sex scene in the middle of it, and it's like, why is this so well lit, and why is this so like
looks so beautiful,
strategically shot? Like, it makes no sense. So I think that, you know, it's a conversation that will probably come up a lot.
You started younger, though, because I started acting at 22, and I came up here, and every single role, I got to tell you, it's 3 seconds of nudity, 8 seconds of nudity. I'm like, I don't do nudity. They're like, oh, well, you have to. Every actress does at least 3 or whatever, 3 and 8 seconds was the number. And I'm like, why do I have to do nudity? My producer's like, that's how you get in, you know.
I know, and it's crazy. And it's funny. My sister, I love my sister, has the greatest sense of humor. And she goes, well, are they paying you? I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm getting paid. She's like, but are they paying you well? I was like, I'm just getting paid like the normal, like what the union amount is. And she's like, if they're not paying you for your boobs, don't show them. And I thought that was so funny. Because on one hand, it's like, on one hand, it's like, no, but on the other hand, it's like, yeah.
The price is right, yes.
The price is right, you know.
Forget about my morals and how my mom brought me up.
Oh gosh, you know, you got it in the toolbox, you know. You got that card for later if you ever need it, sort of thing. But I just thought that was really funny.
Save it for the right movie.
Save it for the right
your
thing.
movie, the movie that you write is something that's a brilliant film because you wrote it.
Yes, I know, and then I can be in control of it and what I want it to be. Yeah,
exactly. And the show you're writing, you said you wanted to have all women, director, writers. I mean,
hopefully right now I'm just in the, writing process, but hopefully when it finds a home, if it does, knock on wood,
it will find a home.
That it finds a home where the people that come on board have the same vision that I do with the show, because the show is not based on my life necessarily, but my mom and I live together and we have such a special relationship. And the Gilmore Girls kind of mom-daughter relationship that's just like so kind of like perfect and cute and whatever. And living with my mom is like one of the funniest things, because we go from one moment having like conversations till 2, 3 in the morning, like sitting on our couch drinking tea, and then we're like, oh, we gotta go to bed, we've been up too late, and like it's just like a sorority house, like what I imagine a sorority house would be like my mom and I have. And then the next moment, it's like the next morning she walks into my room and I'm like, can you knock, can you please, like we have boundaries, we have rooms, we have doors. But that's part of it, that's part of us. And so I was like, I want to show what two women in two completely different parts of their lives, like, I'm in my 20s, my mom's in her 40s, and it's those are such different times, and yet we connect in so many ways, and we're both kind of going through the same things, but in completely different ways. And I'm able to offer her advice, which I never thought that I would be able to do, and she's able to offer me so much advice, which I always knew that, like my mom is so wise and so smart. And so I was like, I want to show that on a TV show. And I was like, and also in the confines of Los Angeles, which is a city that it's a really interesting city to live in.
It is.
My sister met some guy who told her that LA is like granola. They're fruits, they're nuts, and they're flakes. And it's true, right? It is so true. Yeah. They're like a few really good fruits. Yeah. They're like, some people are crazy, and then there are a lot of flakes. There are a lot of people who are very nice, and you enjoy them, but they're always just like, oh, like let's get together soon, so soon, like lunch next week, and then it's like 2 weeks go by. So, I was like, I want to do a show about LA. I want to do a show about women, and I want the people that write it and that direct it to be women. And I don't want to just shed a light on an issue in the industry when it comes to like what they expect of women, what they want of us, like what they want of young people to sacrifice of themselves to make it, and how hard it is to quote unquote make it, and to even get one job, and to get. And it's so funny because you look at actors and you see them do like Jennifer Lawrence. Everyone looked at Hunger Games as like, wow, she's made it. She did that one job, and she had worked steadily for years before. It's just no one was seeing those movies. And her nomination with Winter's Bone was kind of what like propelled her to get the part that everybody now knows her from. But she was a very talented actress from the time she was very young, and she grew as an actress throughout her entire career, and it was only now that people have started to kind of take notice, and people look at it as like, oh, she got that one part. But you can't just get that one part, because that's not what it is. I mean, there's so many things that you have to have leading up to it. And even sometimes once you do that one part, no one believes that you could do it again. I remember after I did Orphan, it was so funny because I played a 33-year-old woman.
Great reviews.
And I was very proud of my performance and what I did, and I was still, of course, I'm young and doing, going to class, and still have so much room to grow. Still, every single day, I'm constantly learning things. But I remember that it always seemed like maybe it was a fluke to people that I was able to do that job. That it was like, oh, well, she people just told her what to do. And I feel like you can look at kids sometimes and go, oh, they're just doing what somebody's telling them.